Hi, everybody. My name is Hayden Green, and I am the Director of Multicultural Affairs and the founding director of the Multicultural Center. The Multicultural Center is located in the Student Commons on the third floor. We are a space where all identities are welcome, and we encourage people to come and find a home with us so that they can grow and thrive. But it's also a place where you can be yourself and learn about other identities that you may or may not have had an opportunity to interact with while you were in college. We do programs in the center, we do programs campus wide, and we are always welcoming. There's always chocolate, and there's always a place and a friendly face for you to interact with when you get to the Multicultural Center. Now, I've used the word identity already. And I want to make sure that we all are on the same page with what we're talking about and why we're doing this. The title of this is Who Are We? And when we start to think about how we describe ourselves and how we interact with the world and how we come into a room, we start having to figure out what language are we going to use. And I'm not talking about English versus Spanish or French or some other language. I'm talking about what are the languages that we use to identify ourselves. So this is going to be a conversation about identity. So first of all, we can't start talking about identity without talking about the biggest identity that we all share, which is being a Jasper, being a Manhattan College student. Now, being a Manhattan College student automatically means that you have decided that the LaSallian education process is something that you find valuable, that you want to be part of that educational process. But what does that mean? By now, you've already heard about the 5 LaSallian values, and we're going to talk about them a little bit here, but that's not what this is about. I want to go through them because everything that we talk about in terms of identity and in terms about who we are as a community really links back into what it means to be a LaSallian. Right. So the first and foremost thing that we talk about is a quality education. We want to make sure that you are leaving our campus after 4 years with a better understanding of self, a better understanding of the world, that you're getting a quality education. We also are concerned about our people who are less fortunate than we are, and that is a real Catholic Christian way of being. And faith in the presence of God, whether you are a Catholic or whether you ascribe to a different religion or whether you're not religious at all, LaSallian really wants you to understand what it means to have faith either in yourself or in a higher being. Social justice is where we start to talk about where we are right now. This campus is really dedicated to social justice and making sure that everybody has an equal way of interacting with the campus and just a feeling that all people are carved out from the same cloth and are afforded the same amount of justice. And last but not least, inclusive community. And this is where we come in. The Manhattan College Multicultural Center is the embodiment of inclusive community. All we are is a place where all people can come together and all people are welcome, and no matter what their worldview is, no matter how they look at the world, the Multicultural Center is a place where that community comes together and is always welcomed. So when we start talking about learning, this kind of conversation tends to get a little bit uncomfortable. It's not very often that we're asked to talk about who we are, especially along the lines of some of the more, hard things to talk about. And we're going to delve a little bit into that today. And I want you to understand that this may cause a little bit of discomfort. But I put this chart up here because learning happens when we leave our comfort zone. As this chart shows you, like when we start to leave our comfort zone is when we start to grow as a person. And the more we learn, the more we grow. And so what we hope at the end of the session is that you have, stretched a little bit into that learning zone and you continue to grow. And by the time you have left our campus, by the time you have left Manhattan College, you have grown into a person that is much bigger than the person that you started off with. So this whole program is centered around something that's called the Jasper Halos. And so it's a tradition here at Manhattan College where we create at the beginning of the time that you start at Manhattan College with a halo. Now you've been emailed a template, and hope you can cut it out. And what we're going to do with this session is we're going to fill out our halos, but we're going to talk a little bit about what goes on a halo, how you want to fill them out. And as you can see from all of the pictures that just scroll through, everybody does a halo differently. Some people use words, some people use drawings, some people use a combination of the both. Some people are very monochromatic, some people use a number of different colors. But it's all about how you represent yourself. And that's what's great about a halo. Every halo is different, whether you're making one for yourself or this is your third halo, all of them are going to be different because it's representing who you are, and who you are constantly changes, and who you are is different than the person next to you. So all halos are going to be different. And so what we're going to go through is how you create a halo. So let's get started. So when we start to talk about an identity, identities really are what the way we represent ourselves. So when I come to you and I ask you, who are you, or tell me who you are, generally, you have a group of descriptors, and whether you realize it or not, those descriptors fall into different kinds of buckets. We are going to go through 9 descriptors, and why 9? Well, the 9 that we're going to do are what are called protected categories, and they sound like race, age, gender, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, nationality, ability, and I've forgotten one, but we will get to it, right? And so those 9 identities are really what are called protected categories. And generally, when you see those questions, when somebody's asking you what your race is or what your age is, it's on some sort of official documentation or something that is trying to make sure that whatever you are being asked to enroll in or apply for is not taking advantage of those protected categories. Now, you may ask, well, why do we have protected categories? Well, it's pretty simple. These are categories that people have experienced bias in this country. And the government, our leaders, our forefathers have set down that you cannot discriminate based on these 9 categories, these fundamental 9 categories. Of course, there may be more, but you cannot discriminate based on these 9 categories. And as a result, this is generally how we interact with people. A lot of times you'll ask somebody, what's your age, or tell me a little bit about you, or if you're filling out a dating profile, you may list your race, and you may list where you're from. You may list, what your religion is. And so these are all the ways that we really identify. Now, the great thing about it is that we have a multitude of identities within us all. We have descriptions for all of these things. And so when we're going to go through each one of these. And as we go through it, I have some really great people helping me out, showing me, and they'll show you how they've described their identities on their halos. So we're going to get started. And as we go through each one of them, take time to fill out your halo. You may draw something, you may write something down, you may color it in, but that's up to you. Also, don't feel rushed. If you don't finish your halo by the end of the session, that's okay. We'll tell you what to do at the end of it, but you'll find. Take it at your own pace. And we'll be able to come back to this session and look to see if you've missed anything or if you have any questions. So, ready to get started? I am. Let's go. The first one that we're going to talk about is race. Now, this is a heavy one, especially in this country over the last couple of months, because we have had a lot of conversations about race and about racism and about being anti-racist. Race, whereas it is not based in any biological fact, is something that is man-made and divides us. And even though it is a completely man-made idea and a man-made identity, this is something that is commonly used to distinguish between peoples in this country and across the world. And so when thinking about race, generally the words that you will see used are either Black, African American, white, Asian. Sometimes people may use the words mixed race. So however you see yourself as a racial being, however you describe yourself, your race, however you describe that, That's what you would put on your halo, however you might describe that. And to tell us a little bit about how she describes her race on her halo, I'd love to introduce Eunice.
Thank you, Hayden. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Manhattan College. As you can see on my halo to represent race, I wrote Asian, but I do wish to highlight that, as Hayden said, race is a very complex and layered concept. So it is at times very confusing within the Filipino community. We question, are we Asian? Some people question, are they Pacific Islander? Are we both? But all this to say, it's ever changing. It's a socio-historical concept, and the Multicultural Center is a perfect place where you can question your identity, ask questions about it, and learn about other identities as well. But yes, I chose.
Thank you so much, Eunice. The next one that the next identity that we're going to look at is age, right? So age seems like a very simple concept in order to represent, but a lot of people may want to put just an actual number. I'm 18, I'm 19, I am 45, right? They'll put whatever number of years they've been on the planet. However, there are a number of different ways that you can represent age. One of them might be young. One of them might be old or mature. Another one might be coming up in the world, right? So there are a number of different ways to represent age. And I'd love to see how Chelsea represents age on her halo.
Hi everyone, I'm Chelsea, and this is my halo. At the time when I made my halo, I was 18 years old, fresh out of high school, and excited to start my first year at Manhattan College as a new Jasper. And looking back at my drawing, I chose to represent my age by writing out 18 years young in a little cloud bubble. And I made sure to make the distinction that I was 18 years young because despite now being in college, having this new sense of independence and not being considered an adult, there is still so much for me to learn about life and about myself.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. I remember being 18. No, I actually don't remember being 18. Okay, so our next category is gender. And so when we start to talk about gender, the words that generally come up are male, female, but there is a whole range of how you can describe your gender. Everything from cisgendered to multigender and fluid. So there are a number of different ways that people represent how they are in gender. And so gender doesn't have to do, and one of the interesting things about gender is that it has nothing to do with what your physical attributes are. There are people who feel that they are a woman inside of a man's body or a man inside of a woman's body, and their gender is how they perceive the world. So to talk a little bit about gender, I will show you what my halo looks like. So on my halo, I represented gender here with the male symbol. And inside of the male symbol is the word cis. And that's maybe a term you may not have heard. I am a cis male, and cisgendered simply means that I am comfortable with the gender that I was assigned to at birth. So when I was born, the doctors and my parents said, that's a male, that's a boy, right? And I've grown up as a man, and I am comfortable with that gender, with the gender that I was assigned at birth. As I mentioned before, there are plenty of people who are not comfortable with the gender that was assigned to them at birth, and they either go through a transition or have other ways of dealing with that. So that's how I represented gender, and that leads us to our next identity, which is sexual orientation. And sexual orientation is really simple. Sexual orientation is who you choose to love, which is different from who you are as a gender, but it really talks about who you choose to love. Are you a man who chooses to love women? Are you a woman who chooses to love men? Or are you a woman who chooses to love women? Or is it somewhere in between? Everything from bisexual homosexual to pansexual to non-sexual. There are a whole range of ways that people describe what their sexual orientation is and who they decide to love. And I've asked Stephen to tell us how he has represented sexual orientation on his halo.
Hello, guys. All right. Here's my halo right here. And I have, I have the rainbow here because if you look closely right here, it will say bisexual because I identify myself as bisexual because I am attracted to female and males, but I don't think anybody should limit themselves. So, I think you should be yourself, embrace it, and just love who you love because we all are here to support and to be there with you through your journey. And with that, like Hayden said, you might have gay, you might have lesbian, you might have bisexual, you might have transsexual, you might have, queer. We're all here for you. So if you just be you, you'll do great.
And that's great. Stephen brings up an excellent point. However you decide to represent yourself is welcomed here at Manhattan College. We are a very open campus, and we want everybody to have a place to grow and to express themselves. Our next category is class. And when we talk about class, we speak about socioeconomic class, which simply means where are you on the socioeconomic ladder in this country. And so when we start to talk about socioeconomic class, the words that we start to look at are either working class or rich or middle class or wealthy. And so those are a couple of things. Those are a couple of different ways that generally people describe themselves when talking about class. There are also people who may describe their class as broke or have enough or embarrassment of riches, right? So there are different ways that people represent this. So for your halo, though, as you're filling out your halo, the way that I want you to represent your class is I want you to represent it as your family, because if you think about yourself right now as a beginning college student, that old I'm a broke college student, everybody's going to write that down. But I want you to think about your family. Where does your family fit on the socioeconomic class? And to talk a little bit more about that, I'd love to hear from Anna.
Hello. So I decided to put my family as middle class. I think you can see it right there. And the reason why I decided to put that is because I'm a very proud daughter of Dominican immigrants. I'm the oldest of 9, so it's a very big family. My mom is a teacher in New York City, and my dad's a school bus driver. They work very hard for everything that we have, and my siblings and I live a comfortable life. So I decided to put middle class because I have my family has always given me everything that I've ever needed.
Thank you, Anna. And Anna's a recent graduate of Manhattan College, so she came back to help us do this. The next one we are going to talk about is nationality. And this sometimes gets convoluted with what we're going to look at next, which is ethnicity. But right now, nationality is what is your nation of citizenship? Where do you come from? How do you describe yourself in terms of what does your passport say? And so for most people who are coming to our school at Manhattan College, that nationality will probably be the United States. But we have a really rich history of embracing people from all different nationalities, whether they come to us as international students or they come to us as people who have immigrated from another country and are now starting school with us. For instance, myself, my nationality is British. I actually have a British passport. I was born in London. And so that's another one of those hidden identities that you'll not be able to look at somebody and go, well, what nationality are you? And so that's something that is one of those hard and fast things. It's like, what nation do you claim, right? And so to talk a little bit more about that, I'd love to bring back Eunice.
Hello again, everybody. I'm going to flip my halo because I wrote American upside down, so you can see it. But a quick little story about that is that I was actually born in the Philippines, and my family and I immigrated from the Philippines, obviously, to the United States when I was 4. And about 9 years ago, they took the citizenship test. So since I was under 18, I became an American citizen with them. So that is why I chose to represent American. But again, as Hayden said, the complexity, or not the complexity, but the kind of intertwirling of nationality and ethnicity is definitely a thing. But yes.
Thank you so much, Eunice. And so, speaking of ethnicity, here we are here. And ethnicity is really what your cultural background is. And so that really speaks to what are your traditions, what are your customs that your family ascribes to. It is intertwined with your nationality at a lot of times, but because we are a nation of immigrants, our ethnicity really looks at where our family history goes back to. And so for me, as I mentioned, I was born in London, but my family is from Trinidad, and I therefore have a Caribbean ethnicity. And to tell you a little bit more about that, I'd love to hear from Chelsea again.
So to represent my ethnicity on my halo, I drew a Haitian flag, which is characterized with blue at the top, red on the bottom, and then its coat of arms in the middle. And I'm the daughter of 2 Haitian immigrants who came to America in search of a better life and more opportunities. And when I see the Haitian flag, I'm reminded of the strength, drive, and resilience of Haiti's people. And I'm also reminded of my family's roots. And we continue to uphold Haitian culture in my household by regularly eating Haitian food, listening to compa, and speaking Creole at home. And this is just one part of my identity that I take pride in, and its culture is what makes me value it even more.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. And the ethnicity piece is one that I really love because it forces you to look a little bit deeper than I'm just an American. It forces you to look at what is your family history, and maybe those histories are intertwined. Maybe you are of dual ethnicity. Maybe you have Latino heritage and African heritage. Maybe you have German heritage and Spanish heritage. So it forces you to look a little bit deeper than I am just American, or I'm just Black, or I'm just white. It gives you more of a richness to who you are. So I hope as you're writing your ethnicity on your halo, you're thinking about that a little bit more. Next is religion. And religion is how you represent God, how you think about God. And thinking about God has a wide spectrum. So there are some of us who are devout and know definitely I am Catholic, I am Jewish, I am Hindu, I am Muslim, right? And so those are very easy to say that's what I am. But it runs a spectrum. As you will see with all of these identities, it runs a spectrum. So there are people who are agnostic or are atheists, or people who are who are part of a religion, but really not non-practice, or who are really non-practicing. And how you describe that is up to you, because it's your own personal journey. And again, as you will hear me say over and over again, whatever your journey is, however you describe it, however you relate to that identity will find a place here at Manhattan College. And speaking of religion and finding a place at Manhattan College, Anna has a little bit to say about how she represented religion on her halo.
Thank you so much, Hayden. So I decided to put Catholic. I think you can see it on the bottom right there. And I decided to put Lasallian as well. And so I was raised a Catholic, and I continued to practice Catholicism as I got older. And my faith is something that is very special and important to me. I also put Lasallian because, yes, it falls under Catholicism, but you don't have to be Catholic to be Lasallian. And that's something that's super special about the order. It's a set of morals on how to be a good person. And there are 5 points in the star that break it all down. By the way, we also heard it earlier in the presentation. It's faith in the presence of God, quality education, concern for the poor and social justice, inclusive community, and respect for all persons. And who wouldn't want to live by those morals? And that's something that we learn a lot as students at Manhattan College.
A little bit there, but we will make sure that we get all of that information in for you. The Next one we have to talk about is ability. And this one confuses people a lot, but ability really talks about whether or not you are an able-bodied person. And sometimes we use the word temporarily able-bodied person, and by the time the evening comes, something may happen to take that ability away from you. But when we think about ability, we think about all of the visual ability categories. So are you able to walk? Or are you able to see? Or are you able to speak? But there are hidden ability challenges that people have that we are not able to see. So whether it is a learning disability or maybe it is a mental disability, these are all things that we walk around with that people aren't able to see on a day-to-day basis, but they make up who we are. And so a lot of times when we think about how we accommodate people who have disabilities, we need to think about the broad spectrum of abilities. And so, Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about how you represented ability on your halo?
Yes. Here we go. I think you can see it. It says disabled. Um, and I identify myself as disabled due to the fact that I was born with a heart defect, and that caused, a lung deficiency and a skin disorder. However, you can't see that. You might say, "Oh, you look very healthy," or "You can walk," the visual things. But however, like Hayden said, it's something hidden that most people wouldn't even know if I didn't even tell them. But when you're like being able to do anything and being an able body, you can do anything. Like seriously, you can walk, you can talk. Some people can't. However, it's the other things that matters. Like you can be able to just sing a note, able to just be yourself. And I'm disabled. And what do you define yourself as?
Yep. Thank you so much, Stephen. So here we are so we've gone through 9 identity, and so we are at the other category. And so why is other here? So as I mentioned before, the 9 categories that you have just gone through are what are called protected categories, but that's not the only way that we describe ourselves. And so when we start to look at all of the different ways that we identify ourselves, sometimes they don't fit into these categories. And so here is where you can put all of the other things that make up who you are. For me, on mine, I have, if I can see it here, a bicycle. I'm a cyclist. I like to cycle. I like to ride very, very long rides. So this weekend, I think I'm planning a 70-mile ride, and so hopefully I'll be able to get to it if the weather holds up. But that's who I am. So I wake up in the morning and I'll go riding, or my bike is literally sitting next to me because it's always around me. And so that's part of my identity. I'm also a father, and that's also part of my identity. Everything that I do harkens back to me being a father and how this affects my children. So cycling, how does this affect my children? I cycle in the morning so that I get it done before the kids wake up. So those are all part of my identity. So as you are starting to think about what you want to put on your halo next in terms of other, those are the pieces that you can start to think about. What makes me, right? And so here we are, and you will end up with a halo that looks something like this. So this is my halo. Guys, hold up your halos too. Right? So this is what you will end up with, right? And so one of the interesting things about your identity is that you will have opportunities to represent either one or multiple pieces of your identity every single day. And depending on what is happening with you, one or two of these identities are going to be more salient to you. They're going to really jump out at you. You will realize how people are interacting with you, which one it is, right? So for Eunice, if people are asking her about being somebody from the Philippines, that's the identity that's salient at that point, right? So she's going to really lean into talking about that. For Chelsea, it may mean that, she is, somebody is talking to her about being a woman, right? And that's her identity that has become salient in that moment. But all of those things still exist in Chelsea and Eunice. All of their identities still exist. But in that moment, your most salient identity is being addressed, because that's how you are either representing or people are viewing you. And so we do this all the time. We flip in and out of our identities. And so sometimes we are part of an identity that is part of the dominant culture, and sometimes we start to interplay with each other, or a word that you'll start to hear have are intersection, have intersectionality with each other. You can come to the Multicultural Center or look at our programs, and we are happy to talk about that stuff. Or you can sign up for a program like All of Us, which is a retreat that is happening on September 26th. So that application for the retreat comes out on Monday. So look out for that one. But if you're looking to really do a little bit more work in identity, or if this has sparked some sort of curiosity in you. So where do we go from here? So the next thing that comes up, the next thing that's happening now is you will finish your Halo. So if you haven't finished it yet, take the time and finish up all the rest of the categories. You can add all the things that you either forgot about or you wanted to come back to. You can color it in, or you can leave it blank. It's up to you. Finish up your Halo. The next thing that you want to do is take a selfie with it. All right, so step back and get the Halo right over your head like that, and take a selfie with it. So you might actually need somebody to take the picture for you, because you're going to need an extra hand, right? So take a picture with your selfie right on your head like this, as you saw before. That's the way that we normally take a picture of the selfie. Or you can get creative with it, but make sure you at least get one this way. And then if you want to be creative with it, you can do that later. And then we want you to post it to your Instagram. Post it to your Instagram using the hashtag JasperHalos. And so we want to see how you represent yourself. We want you to be part of the Jasper tradition. And you'll be able to see, if you Google Jasper Halos, you'll be able to see all of these different posts of people in the past who have put halos out, right? Or if you don't have an Instagram, or if you don't want to put it on your Instagram, and we know everybody's protective of their feed, you can email it to us at mcc@manhattan.edu, and we will post it to our Instagram for you. All right, so either post it to your own Instagram and tell us a little bit about you in the description and use the hashtag JasperHalos, or email it to us, send that description, and we'll upload it ourselves. And so that's one aspect of what we do at the Multicultural Center. So if you're interested in identity work, that's the place you want to come and have a conversation with us. Follow us. Our website is right there. It's the Manhattan College website, MC Center, MCM Center, and our calendar is on there. And so you can look at that and see if there's some programs that really speak to you. We have our Instagram, which is right there, MC Multicultural. Facebook is also MC Multicultural, and Twitter is MCM Center. So we are really easy to find, and we want to hear from you. So, and we want to see those halos. And if you have any questions, feel free to address us on any one of those ways. And you can also email us at mcc@manhattan.edu. I want to say thank you to my wonderful helpers today, Stephen, Eunice, Chelsea, Anna. Thank you so much. And so we hope we will see you around campus. And if you have any questions, we are always around. My name is, again, Hayden Green. I'm the Director of Multicultural Affairs and the coordinator for the Multicultural Center, which is on the 3rd floor of the Student Commons. And we hope we see you there. Bye.